The Bar Group, raising the bar in real estate. Your Lake Highlands, Lakewood, Preston Hollow pros. You can find them at thebargroup.com. Unparalleled customer service for your real estate needs. The Bar Group.
Coming through.
There you go.
There's like a handful of people in this world, very small handful, that can really like calm me down. And one of them was my mom and dad. We're both in. That's two. My parents are one, and then number two is Coach Oscar Blair, Eastfield College. Played there for a year, and then transferred to Southeastern after that. And then my wife, and this man right here. Is it Dr. Joe Dinoffer or is it Joe Dinoffer? What do we call you by, man?
I think I don't know everything that people call me, but usually I go by Joe.
I shot right to him because I have the utmost respect for this man, and like I told him, I've been watching him from afar and near since probably '99 or '98, back when he had the rope zone and all these amazing things he did. I even listened to cassettes when this guy was in the trenches of making books, and he plays music, and he's got an amazing family and a daughter who's super smart, and he owns Oncourt, Offcourt, an amazing. How would you describe in a few words, Mr. Joe Dinoffer or Sir Joe Dinoffer, Oncourt, Offcourt?
Well, if you cut out the accolades, I'll do almost whatever you want.
That's a big word.
The history is we started in 1994, and why it started was my motivation to help the students I was teaching. Ended up having 30 years of teaching under my belt. And, it's frustrating when they don't learn quickly and you end up repeating yourself.
They're all so stupid. You know what I mean? They don't get it. God.
So basically started, first I consulted with people like Dr. Jim Lair, Jack Grapple, and some others involved in the business, including Jim Baugh at that time. And everyone warned me against starting a company that would focus on helping people learn faster. So I basically ignored the advice.
Exactly. I was going to say, you're like, oh, bullshit.
I ignored the advice, but realized within a couple of years that if I was to support my family with a business, I had to spread out a little bit. So we started offering other products like nets, windscreens, ball machines. At first, I was totally against that. I was a purist, like many of us, only wanted to just focus on learning and accelerating learning. And, networked a lot, learned a lot from people like Mike Kernodle and old-time coaches ranging from Paul Xanthos all the way up to Vic Braden and beyond. Worked with Peter Burwash for 10 years before starting the company, and learned a lot with him as well.
That's
did clinical studies. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Well, let's focus on. Well, first of all, thank you for coming, man. I know you're busy, and I know you are out there doing great things with family and friends in the sport. But let's talk pickleball. I mean, what you've been entrenched in tennis in high levels and all levels possible. What's a good way to describe pickleball and what you're doing with it and all that?
Well, it's interesting. We got contacted by you now called USA Pickleball or what was it before that? USAPA, the USA Pickleball Association. Now it's just USA Pickleball. To make a net for them, because they thought if they could offer a net system to their customers, it would be a good thing. And we had already private labeled nets that we had been creating and patented for many years for companies like Headpan and others. And we did it. And that was in the early days of the governing body of pickleball emerging, like the first few years.
Wow.
Way back now, close to 20 years ago. So and interestingly, our business, from just a small part of it grew to the point where pickleball is about 50% of our business. And we started as a tennis company, as you know. So
I will tell you, and I'm not being biased when I say this. You know, I'm a horrible liar. Those rolling necks you have, those deluxe ones with the silver. I mean, those things. They're nonstop. They're awesome, and I highly recommend it. I'm not plugging you. I am, but I'm not doing it on purpose. Well,
No, thank you.
That sounds really shitty, doesn't it? I'm just saying, I got a lot of respect for the net. All right.
I mean, like when you're home with your family, right? And there's a leaky sink. What do? You know,
hey, you
either fix it or call the plumber. At the very least, you put something underneath it to contain the water that's dripping.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's kind of my nature to do that, to try to find a little bit of a better way. So when I was setting up portable nets, whether it be for tennis or pickleball, they always use the round tubing, and the round tubing twists, and then the net itself would be out of alignment, you know, and it just, like that. So we came up with the idea of oval tubing, which is aligned, remains aligned.
Yes.
That's it. So we have, with the oval tubing, we've got 7-8 different net systems. The biggest seller we have is that Pickle Net Deluxe.
Oh, I mean, it is.
Which you were just, that's our, you know, our sweet spot, so to speak, is a product.
Okay, I want 10 of them for free now. I'm just kidding.
Sorry?
I said I want 10 of them for free. No, I don't. I'm just messing with you.
So, it's been, you know, it's just solving problems. You know, I don't have training aids with me. I have a home office, but I brought this. And it's obviously a tennis ball, but, you know, we have a pickleball product that partnered with Lenny Schloss and Billie Jean King's iCoach, that where it goes on and with the pickleball, and people get a feel for ball rotation. So instead of just a tennis ball on a stick, sort of what we did is we injected foam. This is a foam injected tennis ball. It cannot break.
Yep.
So with an axis, so it spins really easy. So that's an example of, instead of telling people, to create spin, whether it's pickleball or tennis or table tennis for that matter, I learned through clinical studies that we need to give them a feel, and that words are not the best way to communicate. So my, sign was, or one of my slogans, so to speak, is speak less, communicate more.
Exactly. I love that. But it's true, you know, with regards to seeing it instead of just saying it.
Yeah, and that's not a new, it's very interesting. There was a first century, this is over 2,000 years ago, philosopher. He was he was apparently Greek, and he was captured as a slave by Italy. And his name was Publilius Cyrus. And you can Google him. And he has a lot of sayings as a philosopher he's well known for. And the one I always liked was, I often regretted my speech, but seldom my silence.
That means, say less means more, right?
Yeah, less is more. And when we teach, you know, whether it's pickleball, tennis, or whatever it is, or kids in a classroom, typically, you know, teachers rely on words to communicate. But that is not the best way that people learn. They learn visually or kinesthetically. In fact, 98%, according to this clinical study on court we did with 50 players, 98% of them learn either visually predominantly or predominantly kinesthetically, which is through feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, for example, and only 2% auditory.
Auditory.
That's the principal way of learning. Yet, our principal way of teaching is verbal.
Verbal.
Yeah. So it's really, and to top that off, you know, coaches, they put people in lines, pickleball or tennis or whatever, they put people in lines, and then they're having them hit one ball, the person misses, hypothetically, or a lot.
Realistically.
And then they have to go to the end of the line, dwelling on their failure. And then the coach embarrasses them by yelling across the net, hey, you know, Mary, lower that racket and hit higher. You know, so you're giving instruction to someone who's in an emotional, depressed state, and you know, from just missing a shot.
I was one of those guys for 7 years at the Mecca, man. I remember doing that, and then
and we all have. I When I was a kid, I started volunteering for the USTA. In fact, I grew up in White Plains, New York, and left as soon as I could at 17. But I volunteered for the city, the USTA program for the city in the summers, just to learn, and help out and give me something to do. And I liked tennis. And then I taught privately on some private courts, and I figured out the serve.
I remember that tour you made, that teaching.
Figuring out the serve. Okay, I've been playing since I was 5. I was decent. I was tall enough to have pretty good serve. And I broke down the serve into 30 steps. And I was so proud of myself that I had memorized those 30 steps. And then, I would recite them to the to the student.
Holy shit.
I never thought to ask him, do you remember what number 14 was?
Do you know what I mean? No, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
No. So you got to tell him, throw a ball, toss, tap it, and then you can fine tune depending on what they do individually. Yeah. The expression that's important is one size fits one. One size does not fit all. True. So coaches tend to teach how they learned. Exactly. And people impose that on their own children.
That's a true point. Well, my kids don't play tennis, and I'm pretty laid back. So, I think you're right about that. Well, so with regards to, do you play at all, or you just kind of watch, or do you have fun with it, or with pickleball, or does anybody do it?
I was, about 2 years ago, I tore my supraspinatus in half and a slap tear and bicep tendonitis. I'm going through rehab. And hopefully in the next few months, I'm going to start hitting again. But I think our friend Adrian Chubry and I used to get out near White Rock Lake.
I know where you guys used to hit. I remember all that, man.
It was fun. I love it.
So with regards to your injury, this is one of the things that's awesome about pickleball. They'll never go overhand, right? So you can do the underhand serve.
Shoulders are not a major injury point. And for pickleball versus tennis, obviously huge entry-level advantages. You can pick up pickleball and have fun right away. Tennis is one of those sports that's difficult. It's more like, an instrument like a piano or a guitar. It's hard to pick up and have fun right away. So, I grew up as a percussionist. I would say drums are easier.
Yes.
Because everyone can just, kind of tap on a little drum and have fun. Or my teachers didn't like it, but I learned all my rudiments on the desks in school.
Of course you did. Yeah.
All my paradiddles, double stroke rolls, triples, flam taps.
We all know the heart of the band is the bass player. So you follow their lead, but nobody wants to believe that, but I believe that. So speaking of the heart of the band, what's the heart of the brand right now? So do you have anything that's coming out with pickleball for that's, you want to chat about with the new nets, new paddles? You guys, what are you guys all adding to pickleball with regards to really consistent basis? What do you guys like the most other than nets?
I am always most enlivened when we can help people through either visual training aids or target systems, or anything that's a little bit better to help them speed up their improvement. Because if they improve, they're going to feel happier, continue playing, no matter what it is. Pickleball is one of those things, and it's growing, obviously, more than just about any sport in the country. As far as I know, it may be still at the top of the list. But, there's a good reason. It is more social than most sports, and anyone can just pick it up and get started. There's not a big issue with grips, as you probably know. Seldom is somebody going to pick it up really strange. They just pick it up and can start hitting. Not having that overhead smash, not finishing a point. I did fairly extensive studies on analyzing play and the length of points, and created, you may know, I write a steady column for Pickleball magazine.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've been doing that for 6 to 8 years now.
Oh, wow. So tell us what that is again, so our listeners can try to look for it. What's it called again? What magazine?
It's called, I think it's still called Cup of Joe, but they also added the science of pickleball to it. You just have to look up, it may be under Dinks. It's in every single magazine.
Oh, no.
And we also did a
Cupofjoe.
I know, right?
You're an idiot. You should say a jar of Joe or something like that, man. Come on.
Exactly. Well, it wasn't my idea, but and we filmed. We took hired somebody to do high-speed camera work.
This is for pickleball, right?
Had just a blast doing it. We filmed partially at Lakewood Country Club and put up, pickle nets and so forth like that to film. And we identified a lot of interesting information. I also went to various tournaments and used YouTube and counted the length of points. How many points, what percentage are dinks versus full swings? Wow. Is there a real difference in the length of points? Are there gender differences that are important? Are women's points longer? Are they, we know that pickleball is a gender equalizing sport because you can't close in. It's not about foot speed. It's really about consistency and placement. We learned that the average tennis point is 3 hits, give or take.
Exactly.
And the pickleball point is 9 hits.
Wow.
So you're playing a little over 30 minutes in every hour when you account for the pauses between points and switching sides and, chatting and all that. And tennis is around 11 to 12, 13 minutes out of an hour. Wow. So pickleball is going to give you a little more exercise.
That's right. I remember that. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but I remember, we'd record those sets. And I remember you were talking about that, and I remember doing that. And when you break that down, it's been so long since I thought about this, but you're right. It's 11 to 12 minutes, 13 minutes of play in the whole entire match. That's wild.
Yeah, and when people hear that, their minds are just blown.
I mean, and
then they start. You have to question the way things are taught in general. You have to question when comparing sports. How long am I really active? Because, to be the person that goes to the gym and does one bench press and then says, phew, got it.
Killed
I'm done.
it. Got to work out today, kids.
Yeah, really. I feel great. I walked from, A to B. Well, it's
just you had to find the distance. That's a great analogy. Well, so you said that we're talking with Joe Dinoffer, the president and owner of OnCourt, OffCourt, and several publications, books, tapes, which are now probably, they're streamed like this show. And I like what he said about Dr. Jim Lair, one of his mentors, I believe one of the guys he's worked with, who I respect. And he brought the term sensory perception, which I may have learned this from you. I'm not lying. Where it's how you hold the racket, right? But that leads to the kinesthetic part that you were talking about. A lot of people want to feel when you have them shadow or how they need to hold the paddle or the racket. And I think that's great what you're saying. Also, the amount of physical time you put on a match in tennis or pickleball, I think that's huge to take into consideration. So you said it was 3 balls in tennis and then 9 balls in pickleball. Is that right? I may have messed up the terminology.
Yeah, shots for the length of a point, the average length, obviously. Okay. In pickleball, it's 9 shots. That means in doubles, you hit a little over 2 balls. If it's singles, same thing. And the reason is the rules. You can't close into the net and put it away. And also the serving target is larger.
I gotta tell you real quick, this is amazing stuff because this is a totally different perspective, and that's why I'm glad you came on. Keep going. I think it's great.
So anyway, that the other thing we looked at is we did this with tennis. I did it with pickleball. Also, how fast men versus women can hit the ball. Very similar. Tennis, you got the serve because anatomically we're built differently with our shoulder strength. Men are, but since there's no overhead serve in pickleball and overhead smashes are few and far between. Really, gender differences are minimized just tremendously, and that adds to the sociability. Tennis player. Here's a funny one. I did this. We did audio testing to compare the sound of pickleball versus tennis.
No way. Are you serious?
Right? Yeah, we did. We had, we measured the decibels and
That's
all
great.
that, you know. And what we came up with was shocking. We learned that the contact of a tennis ball hitting a tennis racket is lower in volume, in decibels, than pickleball. So, but everyone complains that pickleball is louder. But I'll tell you why that perception has a life of its own, that pickleball is too loud, it bothers the tennis players. And the reason is, I think there are 3 reasons, or maybe 4, but one of them is that the points are longer. So the sound is more steady, and there's more sound coming off the pickleball court. Does that make sense?
Yeah, higher shot tolerance.
You got, if it hits, it's 20, 30% less volume with the pickleball compared to tennis. It's higher pitched, so it's different than what they're accustomed to. So they're going to complain because it sounds like a siren. You know, that once a month siren test we have in many communities in this country, you hear it. It doesn't have, you know, because it's different. If you're driving a car and you hear a police siren behind you, immediately you have this neurophysical reaction that, you know, is like,
don't fight, just flight, bro.
Right. I'm sorry. Don't give me a ticket, you know, and you come up with all this stuff. So sound is very important, but the tennis sound versus pickleball, it's an interesting thing, is the pitch is higher in pickleball, but the volume is lower. However, because that many more balls are hit per hour, talking about, you know, 3 times.
Yes.
Well, 3 times as many, right? Plus, pickleball is a smaller court, so you have a lot more talking going on. It doesn't have the Wimbledon carryover paradigm like tennis has, where you wear dress whites and everyone's polite and you know, they stand up and clap like this. It's more like, no, yeah, great shot. Oh, I'm so sorry you missed that shot. You know,
sucks for you.
Trash talking. There's fun. So then you put, like, in the area of 1 tennis court, you can put at least 2 pickleball courts. So in that area, all of a sudden you've got 8 people, right? Yeah. Longer points and a higher pitched sound.
That's right.
And people talking.
Oh, social. Yeah, the social's the third part. Is that right?
So of course it's going to be disrupted.
Are you a believer in the acoustic fence?
Pardon me?
Have you ever heard of acoustic fence?
I think I heard of some things.
It's supposed to be a sound blocker,
but not specifically that. Go ahead.
It's just supposed to be a sound blocker, absorb the sound of the pickleball. It's something that.
Yeah, there are all sorts of ways to lower the acoustics, but I think it's more than that. That would have to be addressed to pacify, you know, not to single out ladies, but they play in most of the leagues in this country versus the men. Yeah. So, you know, it's going to be disturbing, and you can't argue with it. It is disturbing. Yeah. So you can play it, you know, around different hours, but it's very difficult as pickleball grows.
So you said those 3. I'm sorry, those 3 points are the points are longer.
Pickleball is a higher pitch, but the volume is lower.
And it's social.
The points last longer, so there are more hits, ball strikes, which adds to the noise. Yep. And then people talk more. Oh, yeah. And you got more people in a smaller area. So it's a more concentrated sound, background sound, if you can call it a background sound.
Sure. No. You know how it goes. You learn to just tune stuff out, and the more you play. So any big endeavors coming up for you here with pickleball, or we just gonna keep going status quo?
Well, we always have new products in our pipeline.
Well, show us some of that.
So, you know, we just launched a product called the Infinity Play System, which works for pickleball and tennis.
Nice.
And we have an exclusive agreement with Sports Tutor. They made like a mini tennis twist for us. It holds 14 balls, I think 12 tennis balls, 12 or 14 pickleballs. Can't remember off the top of my head.
That's nice.
And basically you hit it into a net, and then it cycles down into the machine and then feeds again. Oh, wow. So you can hit again.
Wow.
Into the net. So it's kind of a continuous play that would work in a garage or whatever. And that's one of the most exciting ones. We also added a rebound net, which angles. As you know, hitting on a wall is not realistic because balls have arcs.
Yeah.
So if you hit on a perpendicular wall, the challenge is the ball, it hits the wall and then goes downwards.
Yes.
Whereas off people's paddles, the ball goes upwards. So we have a rebound net that's very large, so you can't miss it. It's soft, rebound, and it's got an adjustable angle. So you can adjust it to that 15 degrees so the ball comes off the way it should for a more realistic practice.
That's cool. So it's like for like small confined spaces. You're not going to believe this, Joe, but you help me understand something. I had to hit against the wall in my house because we couldn't really afford these lessons and all that. So I had a garage door, right? And so the garage door that was solid, and I could not miss between the frames. Now we had a second story.
No, it's not. And you know what this made me think of immediately is, when I was a kid anyway, and we were like doing target practicing, we would set up a can of balls, right, as a target. Or we put 3 balls down and one on top, like a little pyramid.
Yeah, tripod.
Right?
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
Now the question is, how often can you hit that target?
Well, I learned that the hard way for breaking windows out the ass. My dad got pissed, so that's why I hit every ball flat because I kept trying to hit top spin and go do that.
That's
why I hit flat balls.
When I was a kid, we grew up in just a track house. There's a single car garage with the window panels up top, and it was a wooden garage, right? That you lifted and closed. No electronics. Mm-hmm. And I would hit tennis balls on it and break glass. And there was a cartoon. A lot of people did that. There's a cartoon out that showed a woman in the kitchen listening to her son, and a split thing with him breaking a garage door window.
That was me, dude. That was probably me and you.
I know. And then her saying, to herself, guess I have to call the glass company again, that sort of thing. So that was like our first training aid. The rope zone was trying to see psychologically when people are learning something, how important is it for them to feel success versus experiencing failure.
Yeah.
And that bullseye targeting thing we saw, they had some like Arthur Ashe Kids Day years and years ago, US Open, Pete Sampras steps up and they gave him like a 9.5-inch spot, just a simple spot to hit with his serve. He could hardly hit it.
I know. Yeah, I forgot about that.
He was number 1 in the world, one of the best, arguably the best serve in the world or among them. And he couldn't hit it either. And that was with a serve. What to speak of a ground stroke when you're on the run. So my conclusion, and again, I did clinical studies on court while teaching in Dallas in the 90s under the supervision of guys like Mike Kernodle, PhD in sports science, and Jim Lairs, PhD in sports psychology and so forth, and took people through the steps to determine how they learned, number 1, how they felt, and what size target area would be appropriate for them. And that launched the rope zone with the target areas, because we came up with the fact that people psychologically should experience success about 70% of the time.
You can still use that rope zone on pickleball courts. All that stuff.
We actually have, lines that you can put down to create or areas. We sold many, 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 many rope zones, but the sales slowed down over years because, I can't speak of pickleball, but it probably will evolve in the next 10 years to be like tennis more. But of all the certified tennis coaches, we know that only 10 to 15% attend any continuing education opportunities, in-person conventions. And that says a lot. And then out of those, how many are really willing to invest in something that's visual or kinesthetic to help their students, or put the time in just to go to Home Depot and make something? It's much easier to just set up a racket cover or a bag or a few balls and say aim for it. But that's so non-specific, and people don't feel encouraged. They don't understand how to make adjustments if you hit too deep. So they'll keep making the same mistake again and again. It's actually sad and frustrating. When I was in college, I don't know about you, but I did not like large lectures.
No, I hated it. I couldn't. I walked away after 2 or 3 minutes. I couldn't hang on. I was ready to hit balls.
Yeah,
I look back. That was probably a bad thing to do.
It's not confession, and you're not a priest, so I won't confess. My college experience was not a great one.
Yeah, well, I'm with you.
We also did this thing testing attention spans. It's kind of interesting.
What are we talking about?
Attention spans.
I'm just kidding, man.
Oh yeah, got it. You got me.
Well, you got your serious face on. Let's put a fun face on. Let's go to our last segment here. This is called In the Kitchen. And you're going to love this. You can make fun of me all you want. But I was cranking up some Traveling Wilburys, Volume 1 on the way here. I had to listen to that. What are you cranking right now?
Say that one more time. I'm having a little trouble with the audio.
I said I was listening to some Traveling Wilburys, Volume 1 on the way here. And I was jamming to that because that put me in a good mood. So you want to tell us what you might be cranking up a little bit? Music-wise?
I'm sorry. I'm really not following.
Music. What are you listening in music-wise?
What do I listen to music-wise?
Yeah, I listen to the Wilburys, Traveling Wilburys on the way here.
I am so out of date. I grew up playing percussion.
Nothing wrong with that.
I've recorded a CD, done studio work, and still play. Not quite as much. I'm not like really interested in lugging my kit to go gigging, but I'm like a jazz fusion guy.
Oh, you're a jazz fusion guy. Okay. So
yeah, but I enjoy R&B, soul, blues.
I see you play something. Haven't you played somewhere before? I thought I saw something.
Well, I played around town, but not in the last few years. Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess some time's flying by. That's my attention span. You know that. So,
well, the attention span has to do with lectures, which is what I was getting at, and words. And right now, 20 years ago, it was 42 words was the average attention span, which takes around 15 seconds for most of us. And it's down to 8 now.
I can see that.
National average.
Well,
so 8 seconds.
That's scary thoughts.
What were we talking about?
We're talking. Shut up. Nothing. I was just talking about one of my favorite movies of all time. I watched. I got a binge watch. Was Hot Shots. You have a favorite movie of all time?
Oh boy, I'd say I really liked Life of Pi.
Yes.
I really liked that movie Big Fish. Off the top of my head.
Those are all. What's his name? He did Nightmare Before Christmas. What's his name? Oh man, the director did Nightmare Before Christmas. Tim Burton.
Okay. Well, you're more of a movie buff than I am.
I worked at a video store in college and 2 years in high school and college, so you learn to put the same movies back. Remember all the stuff. So tell us about yourself, and then how do people get in touch with you if they want to, or get in touch with Oncourt Offcourt if they want to buy some stuff, or how do people get in touch with you?
How are we doing now?
Well, how would people get in touch with you or your company if they want to order stuff?
Sorry, I'm getting a little echo. I hope it comes through. If not, we can chat again. It's just oncourtoffcourt.com. No punctuation or hyphens. And that's for the company. And my email, if anybody, has a driving urge to chat, I'm very responsive. I learned the phrase that stuck with me my whole life is to be responsible means to respond. Mm-hmm. And my email is joe@oncourtoffcourt.com, JOE.
And listen, you really do have a lot of good stuff out there with regards to mental tennis and now hopefully mental pickleball and all that, mental racket sports. But he's got a lot of good stuff out there. And I can be reached at Curtis, CURTIS, at Reese racketsports.com. Watch this focus, Joe. Curtis, CURTIS, at Reese racketsports.com, REESE How'd that sound?
At least your lungs are working well.
Shut up. Anyway, well, hey, man, I'm glad you came on. And if you ever want anything great at an awesome price and good quality, well, on-court, off-court, email this young man right here. I call him sir because that's what he is to me. And if you want to talk to me or be on my show, check us out. Download the Vocal app. Check out all our shows. They all rock, just like Joe Dinoffer. Joe, I'll talk to you soon, brother. Have a great weekend. See you, man.
Thanks so much.
All right,
Keep
bro.
up the good work.
Thanks.
Bye.
Coming through.